Shavua Tov, Israel Brief family, and welcome to another week here with me, Rolene Marks, as we dive into those headlines that are making the top story here in Israel. I had to think about where I am for a second. As always, there are the headlines you won't see in the media in your country, but no worries, we've got you covered, and we are without any bullshit, any filters, and we make it as interactive as possible. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And if you would like to receive our weekly newsletter of original articles, Israel Brief recaps, and some of my other media appearances, please be in touch with us via our website. And a reminder, if you have any questions you would like answered on the show, please be in touch via the website or via our social media, or you can even pop it in the comments section below. And of course, every Thursday, I bring you your choice for your mensch or menches, your great people, and your morons of the week. So thinking caps on, guys, and let me know who your choices are. Now, today is day 759 of the Iron Swords War, or since the 7th of October, and there are still 8 of our brothers whose remains need to come home for a dignified burial. For us in Israel, the hostage crisis is not over until all of them come home. Until all 8 come home, this remains on. So let's take a look at the top story, and we begin with the news that last night Israel received back the remains of 3 deceased hostages. They were confirmed to be Colonel Asaf Hamami, Captain Omer Nutra, and Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel. Now, all 3 of them fell or were killed in combat on the 7th of October, and their bodies taken into Gaza, where they were held by Hamas. Now, just on the subject of Omer Nutra, he had a dual Israeli and US citizenship. He was a lone soldier. He volunteered to come and serve in the IDF. And last week at the World Zionist Congress, I had the opportunity with all the other delegates to hear his parents, Ronen and Orna, speak. And, you know, these hostage families, what they have only endured over the last 2 years is incomprehensible to so many of us, but to stand there with such strength, with such fight to bring your child home. And as Ronen said earlier today in a statement, once it was confirmed that the remains were of his son, Omer, he said that it's a day of great pain, but also a day of relief, that they could bring him to rest in the soil of the country that he loved so much. And of course, we hold the Daniel, the Nutra, and the Hamami families in our hearts, in our thoughts, and in our prayers, and may their memories be eternally blessed. And yesterday, Israel laid to rest Sacha Baruch, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri on the 7th of October. He was killed in captivity. He was laid to rest in the soil of Kibbutz Be'eri. And Amiram Cooper, who is one of the oldest of the hostages taken, laid to rest on the kibbutz of Nir Oz. And Nir Oz released a statement that they have now received back all of the hostages, the living and the dead, and they can start the painful process of trying to remember them, but also trying to start the healing process. And as I said to you, I think it was last week, many people ask us, or many people say, well, now Israel can begin to heal. And to be honest, guys, I don't know how we heal from the events of October the 7th. I think it will affect us for generations to come. It was such a seismic event in Israel's history and Jewish history that I think while we will learn to cope, I think we will always walk alongside the events of that day. So depraved they were in nature. And also just living through war. I think people don't understand what it's like to live through a war until you've lived through a war. You know, last week at the conference, somebody said, well, you know, I can understand how Israelis feel. I was there for this and then I was there for that. And I appreciate the effort to try and understand, but until you've lived every single day through a war where it's governed your whole life, where you haven't come in and come out, you know, kind of been able to remove yourself from the situation, you can't really fully comprehend and understand what we as a country have felt. Now, speaking to 60 Minutes, President Trump said that, you know, he was happy to receive back the remains of Omer Nutra. If you recall, the president references Omer as well as Itai Chen, another U.S. national whose remains still are held by Hamas, so, you know, whenever he can. And he also warned that if Hamas do not behave, these are his words, they will be destroyed. Philanthropist Sylvan Adams has pledged $100 million for the rebuilding and rehabilitation of Soroka Hospital in Beersheba. Now, this follows a vote or an allocation by the government of 360 million shekels to rebuild specifically a tower, which will be called the Recovery Tower at Soroka Hospital. If you recall, during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, Iran fired ballistic missiles and missiles hit Soroka Hospital, which is one of our most important hospitals in the city of Beersheba, destroying a large chunk of the hospital. Some of the other money will be pledged by medical services like Clalit Healthcare, as well as other donors. But the focus now very much, wherever we can, is on rebuilding those communities, those buildings hit during the course of the war and subsequent wars within the wars during the last 2 years. The Knesset's National Security Committee has approved advancing the reading of the death penalty bill. Now, this will be expected to be voted on at the plenum of the Knesset, and one of the members of Knesset said, you know, it's not a move for revenge, it is rather a deterrent against terror. Now, what many people don't realize is Israel does actually have the death penalty. It has only been enacted once, and that was the infamous case of Adolf Eichmann. If you recall, during the 60s, the Mossad captured Eichmann, who was one of the main architects of the Holocaust, who sent millions of Jews to their deaths. They captured Eichmann in Buenos Aires in Argentina, brought him back to Israel where he stood trial. And the Eichmann trial was also a pivotal moment in history because it was the first time that the world, and especially Israelis, had really heard the testimonies of survivors of the Holocaust, really understood the magnitude of that horrific genocide and everything that led to it and everything that Eichmann was responsible. It was also the first televised trial in history, so of course broke many barriers over there, but Eichmann was hanged, he was then cremated, and his ashes scattered out at sea. And following the events of the 7th of October, the worst attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, many in Israel feel that it is only fitting that the Nukhba terrorists, those responsible for those atrocities, face the death penalty. However, there are many others who say that giving these terrorists the death penalty could also turn them into martyrs in their own community. And finally, Erica Kirk, the widow of the late Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated at Utah University. Charlie was a very famous US conservative activist, but also a great lover of the state of Israel. Contrary to what you might hear, many conservative pundits try to put out, Erica will be in Israel this week to accept an award posthumously for her late husband. Now, this is due to take place at the Christian Media Summit, which will bring together about 100 Christian leaders and influential Christian figures to Jerusalem, to Israel during the course of this week. There will also be an award ceremony where Erica is scheduled to receive this award. And at a time when we do see this rise of people supporting pundits like Tucker Carlson, Calvin Robinson, and others who are taking an extremely anti-Semitic, I won't even say anti-Israel, because we've gone past that threshold, into dangerous anti-Semitism. We so appreciate the support of our Christian brothers and sisters around the world, and it is our honor to honor the many that advocate for the truth and fight against anti-Semitism in this very, very troubling climate. So guys, those are your headlines for today. Today's audience question comes from Craig from Melbourne, who says, are people still volunteering in Israel? Well, funny you should mention that, Craig, because I actually happened to meet with a group of volunteers from the States over the weekend, and to be honest, I hadn't realized that people were still volunteering so much after the war. And yes, that is very much happening. People are coming. They're coming to do barbecues and feed our soldiers. They're coming to visit wounded soldiers. They're coming to pick fruits and vegetables on the kibbutzim in order to ensure that Israelis have food on our table. They're here doing tremendous work, and I cannot tell you how much joy it gave me to hear that there are still people coming. And there are programs for people that want to volunteer. I know many of you know about Sarel, and they are, going full speed ahead, as are many. So if you're looking for something meaningful to do, you want to come to Israel, it is of course perfectly safe to come to Israel. Come and volunteer. So guys, that's it from me for today. Please don't forget to join me again tomorrow for another edition of the Israel Brief. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe if you like this content on our YouTube channel right here by hitting that subscribe button. We're on Facebook at Lottel Site. Our website is www.layoftheland.online. We're on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, on Substack at Rolene Marks, and clearly I'm getting forgetful, but I'm going to go have myself a cup of tea, and I will speak to you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.